My name is Martin Ball, and I am one of the instructors at Mindscape Psychedelic Institute, where I'm one of the primary teachers in the Trauma-Informed 5-MeO DMT Facilitation course, and where I've also designed my own individual course on 5-MeO DMT Integration Specialist Training. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, is the integration class. Now, of course, in the facilitation course, we do cover integration. We do preparation, intake, facilitation, being trauma-informed, and aftercare and integration. And it's something that's very important. If you're going to facilitate in 5-MeO, you do need to know something about integration and aftercare. We do consider it to be a vital part of the program at Mindscape. But it's also important to keep in mind that being an integration guide and coach is fundamentally a different role than being a facilitator. Again, I think a facilitator should know a lot about integration, but it's a different area of practice. It requires different skills, different knowledge, and a different way of interacting with potential clients. And this is an area in which the 5-MeO DMT world really has been lagging behind. The whole concept of integration really is relatively new in the psychedelic world. I've been in this field for 18 years now as a public figure and as an author. And back when I started, integration wasn't even a word. It's not something that we talked about. There was a little bit of talk about aftercare, but the whole idea that you have integration that follows your psychedelic experience or your entheogenic session is relatively new. And it comes mostly out of the world of psychedelic therapy and the idea that if you're really going to be working with these very, very powerful tools for transformation and change, not only do you need to be well prepared going into your session, you need to have a very well facilitated session with an experienced guide, a facilitator. And then there's the issue of aftercare. What comes next? What comes after an experience? Now, there's been a lot of protocols that have been developed around this topic of integration, but because they're coming out of the world of psychedelic therapy, really what we're getting is integration tools for psilocybin mushrooms, which is important and great. Integration tools and practices for MDMA sessions, which again is important and great. Integration tools for ketamine, things like that. However, 5-MeO DMT is a fundamentally unique entheogenic molecule. There really isn't anything else on the planet that compares to it. The experiences that are activated and engendered by 5-MeO DMT are not comparable to psilocybin mushrooms, to ketamine, to MDMA, or really anything else in the psychedelic pharmacopoeia. And this is because 5-MeO DMT is extremely powerful. It's very energetically active, and more so than any other psychedelic compound, holds the potential to completely dissolve the human ego, where the individual experiencing it goes into a non-dual state of awareness. Most psychedelics don't reach into this realm of non-dual experience. As I've argued in my various books and lectures and talks and interviews, most psychedelics, maybe you'll get to what I like to call non-duality within duality, where there's still a sense of self and it's in relationship to other things, and that self is perceived as being one with everything else or as a part of some kind of collective. There, the ego is still there. There's still a sense of individual identity. The person is still present within their experience. But with 5-MeO DMT, we're going well beyond that into non-dual territory, where the egoic, individuated sense of self dissolves, and then everything is directly and immediately perceived and experienced as one unified consciousness and being. It's because of that reason that I originally gave 5-MeO DMT the nickname of the God molecule back in 2008, after my very first experience of exactly what I've just described here. Now, since this time, 2008, I've been working to educate the public about 5-MeO DMT. I have been doing that through my podcast, The Entheogenic Evolution. I've been doing that through my many books, through my lectures, my talks, my interviews, and like to self-identify as a non-dual entheogenic educator. And for the past 7 years now, I've been working as a professional 5-MeO DMT integration coach from what I call a non-dual and energetic perspective. I have a very intimate understanding of the energetics of 5-MeO DMT and how it works, how it interacts with the human ego, how the human ego works, how it resists, how it lets go, how it interferes, how it withholds, how it judges, how it blocks. And all of this gets radically amplified in a 5-MeO DMT experience. And again, in a way that mostly doesn't happen with other psychedelic medicines and molecules. So the actions of 5-MeO DMT are very, very unique, and it requires a specialized training, specialized knowledge, and specialized approach. So just to make a distinction, for example, with most psychedelics, because the ego is not actually dissolved, if we were to put it into psychological, neurobiological language, we would say that the default mode network of the normal interactions in the brain, they get altered when you consume most other psychedelics. So the sense of self is there, but it's very altered. We're having different thoughts, different emotions, different perceptions, different experiences, but it's still the individual having those experiences. And they're aware of it, even in, for the most part, even in the deepest psychedelic state with most psychedelics. You can still have a conversation with the person who's having that experience because the ego is there. The persona, the character is still present. With 5-MeO DMT, we have the potential for all of that to be completely dissolved within a few seconds after having ingested 5-MeO DMT. And because of that, it's very common that people go through what we call whiteouts and blackouts, where they don't remember what happened. There was no conscious persona present to interact with. Now, again, if we go back to the idea of working with intentions, in your psilocybin experience, your MDMA experience, you can say, hey, I have my intention to work on this thing. I want to resolve this issue. I want to address this trauma or this depression or this anxiety or whatever it may be. And throughout your session with the medicine, you can bring your attention back to that intention. You can say, hey, I really wanted to know about this. That's impossible with 5-MeO DMT, particularly when we're dealing with what we like to call the full release dose level, because there's no character there. You're not able to return to your intentions. So the whole process, the idea of I'm going to prepare for a psychedelic session by setting my intentions, doesn't really work with 5-MeO DMT. The idea that I'm going to bring my attention back to my intentions during the course of my session doesn't really work with 5-MeO DMT. And in fact, what actually takes place is as the conscious ego goes offline, we might have various subconscious aspects of the ego rise up and act out, not to the person's awareness. They don't know that they're doing these things. We can have the release of all kinds of pent-up energies, emotions, and traumas. It can be extremely physically active and dynamic. There's a lot of somatic processing that goes on. And that's just because the ego is something that is fully embodied. It shapes how you use the vehicle of the body. So when we get that conscious ego out of the way, all kinds of energies and things arise. And again, people don't know that they're doing these things. And then eventually the ego comes back, and it's usually struggling to understand what just happened. What have I been through? So not only is the actions of 5-MeO DMT different, but then afterwards we get a whole different set of phenomena that we tend not to see with other psychedelics, where people are waking up in the middle of the night and experiencing what we in the 5-MeO DMT world call night school, where suddenly they found that they're back in the depths of a 5-MeO DMT experience, and they can't tell the difference between what's happening right now and what took place within their session. There's also all kinds of ongoing energetic and emotional processing that takes place afterwards. People might find themselves energetically very different than how they were prior to their session. They might find themselves to be very emotional. They might find themselves very empowered to no longer put up with, let's just be honest, with bullshit. There's a strong emphasis towards authenticity and empowerment within the 5-MeO DMT experience. And again, these things are just different than other psychedelic medicines. And that experience of moving into a non-dual state of awareness is so different, so unique, so unlike anything else that people have ever experienced, that it in and of itself is mind-blowing and difficult for the ego to integrate and grapple with afterwards. So here's my outline for a 5-MeO DMT integration specialist. For one, you need to have a working theory of what is the human ego? How does it function? How does it work? Two, what is a working theory of non-dual energetics and non-dual experience? What is it? What are its characteristics? How do people perceive and experience it? You need to have a working understanding of what 5-MeO DMT does at a phenomenological level. What are the various phenomena that show up when people consume 5-MeO DMT? What parts of it are the ego? What parts of it are beyond the ego? What parts are transpersonal? What parts are archetypal? You need to have a wealth of knowledge of all of this kinds of information. And then in helping people integrate, I like to say, and as I teach in the class, there are a few different things that we're really focusing on. One is helping people understand what happened in their session with 5-MeO. That's a big part of being an integration specialist with 5-MeO DMT. The next is to help people understand what they're going through now, afterwards. And this is where people are particularly challenged. Not everybody feels like they need an integration guide or coach after a 5-MeO DMT experience, but those who do often are in a state of distress and great concern. They feel that maybe they've done something wrong, maybe they've damaged themselves, because they're going through so much energetic processing that feels so far beyond their control that they are looking for reassurance and guidance, and they're looking for someone that can come to them with a sense of authority and a sense of confidence and say, hey, what you're going through right now, this is normal. Not everybody has these kinds of effects, but what you're experiencing, it's fundamentally normal. You don't need to be afraid. And then there's room for guidance, feedback, and reflection about how best to help them integrate that experience and then move forward from whatever after effects they're having now and whatever showed up within their session. So to do that, this course is designed to give people a rich knowledge of the actions of 5-MeO DMT, a rich knowledge of what is the non-dual experience, what is the ego, how does all of this work and interact, and how does it play out in a session with 5-MeO DMT, and then what kinds of information do we need to get from an integration client? What are the relevant questions? What are the relevant listening skills? Where do we want to give advice? Where do we want to give referrals? How best can we help people having these kinds of experiences? Now, as I already mentioned, this is something that I've been doing professionally for about the past 7 years. And before that, I was doing it really just as a public service. I wasn't doing it professionally, but every day I'd be getting emails, I'd be getting requests for Skype calls. Skype doesn't exist anymore, but we used to do it on Skype. And there's a real need for this out there. And I will tell you, as a 5-MeO integration specialist, most of my clients who contact me say, I don't know anybody else that I can talk to about what I'm going through. And that's what I want to help other people become, is become an expert in this area so that you can actually be of service and not just rely on those tools from other psychedelic medicines and other psychedelic contexts, which, as I've stated, in my opinion, do not work well with 5-MeO DMT. This is too unique. It's too powerful. It's too different. We can't just apply other psychedelic integration tools to 5-MeO and expect that people are going to get through. This class is limited to 15 individuals. It meets in the afternoon, Pacific time, 3 to 5 p.m. Currently, I'm hosting the class on Wednesdays. It is a 9-week course. Depending on when you're watching this, the most immediate class coming up starts on March 4th of 2026. So it's coming up in a little over a month from when I'm making this video. But I'm sure that this video will be up longer than that. You can just stop by at mindscapeinstitute.org to see the next dates for the class, or you can buy my own personal website, martinball.net, or my integration website, nondual-and-theogenicintegration.com. There'll be more details available there. I'm happy to share the course syllabus with anybody who'd like to receive a PDF copy of that. I've got a lot of information about the class up on my various web pages, so you can check stuff out there. A little bit more that I'll say about it is that all of the classes are video recorded. They're held on Zoom. There is no experiential portion of this class, unlike with the facilitator training class. Yes, we do offer an experiential portion through Mindscape where you actually work with 5-MeO DMT. That is not a part of being an integration guide. You do not need to have experiential work in order to offer integration advice. Though I definitely recommend that you do have some experience of your own. But I don't consider it to be a requirement for the class. This is open to anyone who wants to be a 5-MeO DMT integration specialist, who already offers psychedelic integration but wants to educate themselves about the unique properties and conditions of 5-MeO DMT. This is, or if you're a therapist or a psychiatrist and you just want to know more about this because maybe you're seeing clients who are coming in saying, hey, I had this 5-MeO DMT experience, and you want to know more about what it is, this is a great place. Also, if you are a facilitator and you want a real in-depth education about the integration process with 5-MeO DMT, this is a great class. Like I said, we do cover this in the facilitation class, but this is much more in-depth and it's much more targeted. So even if you take that facilitation course and you want to go in deeper on integration, this is a great class for you. And as a Mindscape student or alumni, you automatically get $500 off from the class. Even if you don't want to take the class, I'm just going to share a couple of the readings from the class with you, the viewer. One is the main text for this class is my book, Entheogenic Liberation, Unraveling the Enigma of Non-Duality with 5-MeO DMT Energetic Therapy. This is the book that I wrote in 2017 after I retired from being a non-dual energetic practitioner and 5-MeO DMT facilitator. This is the most comprehensive book that is available about 5-MeO DMT, about all the different ways that people might experience it, the way that the ego reacts, the way that it processes, the different phenomenology, what is considered normal. All of that is here in this book. So this is our primary text for the class, along with my more recent book that I published. I think it was just last year. Actually, that was 2024, so a little while ago now. But that is 5-MeO DMT Integration, Embodying Non-Duality is Not What You Think, Education and Empowerment for Working with the God Molecule. And everybody who joins the class, and actually Mindscape students in general who join either the facilitation or the integration class, they get a complimentary copy of my recent 5-MeO DMT glossary, which just covers a lot of the standard terms and phrases that are used in the 5-MeO DMT world that people who haven't been initiated into it might be unfamiliar with. And it is all organized thematically rather than alphabetically, so you can look up different themes. It's broken down into nicknames, dosage and experiential terms, routes of administration, terms and phrases, facilitation and contextual terms, experiential and phenomenological terms and phrases, and post-session experiences and phenomena. So that's what we have in the class. I also bring in a number of videos and lectures. As I've said, I've been working on this for 18 years. I personally have produced more educational materials about 5-MeO DMT than probably everybody else collectively on the planet. I have dedicated myself to doing this, and it is a true honor and pleasure to teach this 5-MeO DMT integration specialist training course with Mindscape Institute. I'm bringing in materials from the full 18 years that I've been working on this subject into the class. So it's very rich. There's weekly readings, there are writing assignments, and at the end of it, I do produce a certificate for you if you have filled out all the assignments and completed them to my satisfaction. Class is limited to 15 students. If you miss class, every class is video recorded and uploaded to the Kajabi platform where you can go and view it on your own time. Of course, active participation in class is definitely preferred if you are able to be there for the live Zoom classes. Again, they tend to be 2 hours long, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday afternoons. We're starting March 4th this year. We'll be taking a couple weeks off in the middle as I will be traveling with my family. So I think it's spanning 11 weeks total. If you have questions, please feel free to shoot me an email at martinwball@gmail.com. If you'd like to see a copy of the course syllabus, I'm happy to share that with you. Thank you for watching this promo video for the 5-MeO DMT Integration Specialist Training Course. I hope to see you in class at Mindscape Institute. Take care.